We'll bring James into this conversation while you respond.
What I took out of that, first of all, Paul George has to do what he has to do to make sure his sanity stays right.
Mhm.
So if removing a lot of the pressure in a certain way helps him get through day to day, I'm not going to judge him for that, because we talked about the things that we saw immediately in the bubble, like, he's dealing with some
Something's
stuff
wrong,
like
yeah.
that. So I'm not going to dismiss that. If that's what helps him get through, these moments, I'm all for that. But as far as like what Kenny and Shaq are saying is just preparing yourself. That's not everything. That's not it. There's another part to it where you prepare yourself and then you lay it all out on the line once you get out there. It's not I prepared myself and then
But I feel like that's what Paul George was saying.
how I took it, and maybe how they took it, is I prepared myself and I'm going to go out here. It's just kind of what happens. There's a level of I prepared myself. That's one. Number two, I need to hold myself in this moment to the standards of a great player. Not, and it doesn't get to the point where I'm not. I can only do what I can do. It's like no, like it. I think what Shaq and them are saying is like, and once again, you got to understand. Maybe Paul George is dealing with a way to get through things mentally, but and 15 points in a game my team, that's not good enough. Like, that's not acceptable.
So
That's not. I prepared myself, so this is like no.
Can we be?
I didn't show up.
James, I want to hear your thoughts on this. I don't agree at all, but I also want to be fair. We don't know what the actual question was.
True.
So that's an important part of this as well.
Very
James, thanks for joining us. What do you think?
Okay, so a couple of things. Number one,
by the way, you're in like 8K. Crisp. You look magnificent.
Very
today.
Crisp.
That internet up there in the hills are magnificent.
Don't know what to tell you. Yeah, it's short-lived. I would say this. I think Paul George, and it might even be a little premature, but he feels like a player who is coming to grips with his NBA mortality, right? And he's understanding that he doesn't have much time left in this league. And you can say, well, what does that mean? Like, does he have 3 years? Does he have? I'm not saying he's got like 3 months to live. What I'm saying is that in NBA standards, his career is almost over. Like, he's coming towards the end. He can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And he feels like a player who is getting more and more comfortable with life after basketball, but like that, where he is, who he is, how he stands in the world, the fact that he understands he's no longer a 1A. And then the other thing I would point out is, because I didn't fully hear Kenny and Shaq go in on him, but I would caution both of those guys because, like, let's just be honest, like, both of those players are very specific. Like, Shaq is the biggest, most dominant, like, gigantic physical specimen that the NBA or any league has ever seen. Like, he doesn't know what it was like to be a Scott Pollard and try to fight his way into the league after getting waived as a rookie. He doesn't know what it's like to be a fringe NBA player at all. And on the other side, Kenny, like, let's be honest, Kenny was like the 5th or 6th best player on championship teams. Like, there's a different level that Paul George is at that Kenny Smith has no idea.
Well, in Kenny's defense, it was mostly
Kenny didn't say anything. In that clip.
Yeah,
I don't know what happened afterwards, but it was Shaq and Chuck, who were basically like, who have been on that level, who said, that's not how that works at this level. Like, it's not, and I don't know if it's right or not, but I understand it's like, that's not how it works. Like, we get all the money, we get all the accolades when things go right. You've got to say when things go wrong, I didn't step up and I didn't perform. Not, we did our work in the offseason. It's out of our control now. He said that. Shaq said that's not how that works.
I understand all that, but at the same time, like, everyone is different, and the way they process like their mortality in the league, it's Paul George is likely looking at this as, is this my last hurrah? Am I going to be able to get to the championship level? Am I going to be able to get past this level, or is this kind of who I am? And I don't have any problems with it. Like everyone deals with sort of the grief of what it is to, no longer be the player they were before. And, again, he has flashes of brilliance where I think he's just incredible. But then there are other times where you're just like, okay, like we see, that you probably have 2 or 3 years of, being even, I don't even know if he has 2 or 3 years of being an elite player, but maybe like a high end role player. Like he talks about not being a 1A. He's not a 1B. Realistically, he might not even be a 2 in today's NBA at this point. So it's not easy for sort of like that understanding. And like, look, what is he supposed to do? Like, he shows up to work, and then he plays with a guy who for whatever reason just isn't available. And so that's, Paul George isn't the reason why the Clippers are on the brink of elimination. It's that Kawhi Leonard doesn't play. And whatever the reason, it's just what it is. Like he's playing with an unreliable teammate at this point. And again, that goes for whatever reason that Kawhi Leonard has for not being there. And, of course, injuries play a part in everything. But like, how are you supposed to go out there with a guy who is talked about as an MVP candidate for the entire season, and then the last, you get to the playoffs and he's gone and he can't play?
So two things with that. Number one, I hate to bring people's money into this, but I mean that's what you get paid to do. Like if Kawhi goes down, you get paid like a number one. That's your status in this league as a number one. So the thing, and I
He
think
was
this
the number one the game before.
exactly. So what happened on win? Like that makes
he had a bad game,
that
is what
it
I
wasn't
think
a bad.
happened.
It wasn't just a bad game. It was the 17 shot attempts. Like that's if I say in this situation, yo, Keegan, I need Keegan Murray to take 18 shots because the team needs it. What do you think I need Paul George to do? Like I can't have you taking 16, 17 shots in a do or die game 5. I need you to, don't leave anything behind.
It's
Doc,
not like he went Tobias Harris on him.
Well, no, that is just unacceptable.
Well, yeah, God.
Making $40 million bucks. That's talk about unacceptable.
This is weird. I didn't recognize we were going to go down this rabbit hole like this, but that game was a blowout, and I'm trying to figure out like where it really got out of hand. It was a 1-point game. The Mavericks really blew it up in the second, and then it got even worse in the third. That probably more than anything contributed to the number of shots that Paul George took. He played 32 minutes, but the game was already like well out of control. Russell Westbrook was trying to find a shot. Norman Powell. Everyone was trying to find something that no one had. James Harden was 2 of 12 in that game.
And we kind of, I'm not going.
And I'm trying desperately to find a transcript of the question, and I can't find it. Right. There's videos, but obviously,
and I'm not gonna overstate this, but what we say about James Harden and his 12 shots. Mm-hmm. What have we said in the past when James Harden has been passive? He's been eviscerated for it. And I like Paul George a lot more than I like James Harden or a lot of other people, but I got to keep it a stack here. I need more.
And that's fine in a game. And I get it. It's the playoffs. All games are crucial, especially 2-2 series, the whole thing. Paul can't do that tonight because that's where you get it's an eliminate. Like is tonight a must-win game, James? Yes. In fact, tonight is a must-win game. And that's where you start getting those labels. It's not James Harden's performances against the Warriors or whatever team in game 4. It's in game 7. It's in the elimination game in game 6. That's where he's gotten this reputation. Mm-hmm. And Paul can't do that tonight. Paul can't do that tonight. And if James is 2 of 12, he's going to get killed for it. Yeah, he's going to get killed for it. And if the Clippers bring him back like we think they're going to get killed for it. So
I would say if the Clippers bring him back, but at the same time, man, if I'm Paul George, I got to look at that situation and be honest with who that team is and where they're heading and all that stuff too. Like he doesn't have to stay there. He's got a $51 million player option or whatever it is. He can go to Philadelphia and he can make that same money with a guy who goes out there with half of his face slumped down and a trash knee and putting up 50 points and dragging himself up and down the court doing everything he can to try to keep his team in the game. Like Joel Embiid may not hold up, but I think I would rather do that than again play with a group of players that at this point in their career are living off of their brands from 5 years earlier, not who they are today. And so again, like Paul George has his own difficult decisions, but is he comfortable? And is that part of like this conversation where, Kenny, you feel one way and Damian, you feel the other? Is it that he's so comfortable that he doesn't really care about that anymore? Like going and winning the chip might not matter. And, it's tough because I think, a lot of players are out there like, oh no, I've got to go try to win this thing no matter what, Damian Lillard and all that stuff, trying to go to a team that gives him a shot. But you went to the team that gave you a shot and nothing went right. Like you just squandered like 3 or 4 years of your career teaming up with a player who hasn't held up his end of the bargain at all. And, you're grasping at straws if you're Paul George. And again, what would Paul George look like on the New York Knicks next season? What would he look like on Philadelphia? Like there are places where what would he look like in Sacramento? There are places where he could go and find success. He's not going to get paid the same way in most of these cities, but at least you're going out there with a guy like Domantas Sabonis who would go out and play with a broken hand, a broken bone in his hand every single night from December on, or a guy like Fox who, again, breaks his finger in the playoffs and keeps playing. At least you have that because at the end of the day, if you're going to have your legacy questioned because you're sitting out there like fighting a forest fire with a garden hose, okay, that's fine. Like it's about a team. It's not about one player. And it makes it really tough when your teammates aren't there.
Speaking of going to Philly, I was just thinking about this. He'd be going to Philly to play under Nick Nurse. And Nick Nurse, is he the Mike McDaniels of the NBA? You see my boy in the playoffs? The Air Maxes, the Jordans, couple chains on. I see the goal. Boy, Nick Nurse doing his thing.
Looks good.
Where was this in Toronto? I don't remember all this.
He's hanging out with Bobby Jackson.
Yeah.
Bobby.
Was Nick
Bobby
Nurse
Jackson got that
by Drake?
It was Nick.
It was Nick Nurse. Yeah.
Living that lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah. Just a little shoulder rub from old Aubrey.
I don't need your shoulder rubs. I'm not Nick Nurse. Oh, Kendrick in the next one.
Kendrick.
There you go.
James, what do you
a hospital for these shoulder rubs and get a nurse? Oh, the double entendre. Oh my gosh.
We've lost Kenny.
I've been dealing with this all day.
You just might want to mute him.
One margarita, and this is how he acts.
Margarita. Act like you've been there, Casey.
Oh, I've been to plenty of margarita. It'll take more than one to get me turned up.
That's all right.
Sure.
Kim made me a tequila and soda just so it looked like it was a soda and not tequila. Who's in more? But before we get to the Kings, oh God, I got like a bunch of questions running through my head. Slow down and ask one at a time. That's what a good journalist does. Who is in worse shape moving forward? The Bucks or the 76ers?
Oh, the Bucks. Yeah. I mean, I think Giannis is still young enough. You can see another iteration of this team that goes well beyond the group that they have right now, the Middleton, but you got to act quick. And I think by going out and getting Damian Lillard, and his contract is so prohibitive over the next couple of years, it's really tough to do anything, right? It's tough to keep building on what you're doing because you're so top heavy. And so I put like the Bucks so much closer to where Phoenix is. Maybe they don't have the cap. I mean, the restrictions on all their draft picks like Phoenix does. But Philly, I was wrong. They have 2 guys under contract for next season. It's Paul Reed and Embiid, and then they have like a $6 million player option. I mean, a qualifying offer for Maxey, and so they're like 61 million in dedicated salary. You add in the Maxey money, and so next thing you know, they're like right around 70, and then some cap holds, like let's just say like 75 to 80 million. And that means that they've got like 60 something million to spend. And so that team could look much different, and it should look way different than it does right now. They can go out and try to piece together a group. It's whether you can find like the third star to piece together with Maxey and with Embiid. And I think Paul George is a good question. Like, is that the type of player that you would like to bring in to try to finish up? But I would take Philadelphia's situation over Milwaukee's situation, even though Embiid is going to be really tough to see him playing more than like 50, 55 games a year from here on out.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Philly's in a much better situation, based off the financials that you just talked about. Milwaukee, I think we're coming to the end of the road for this thing. I think they got maybe one more year of really trying to get after this and make it work with Dame and with Giannis, but it kind of feels like it's just that 1 year. And like I said, you look back on it, it's about 6-7 years of being at a championship level, and they got 1 ring out of it, and you would have hoped to get to 1 more finals, but I don't know if you will. But it's been a nice run. It's been a nice run.
Yeah, and someone in the chat said, "Oh, they're going to be closer to 90 million with Maxey." Like the cap hold is all they have to worry about right now. They can go build all of that stuff and then come back and pay Maxey after they do everything else. That's why I was saying they can get up to 142 million, and then they can pay Maxey the close to 30 million he's going to get, and that'll put him at 172 million right at the luxury tax.
You think the Knicks are a threat in the East?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, Boston is sorry, Jesse, but Boston has shown an ability to lose in crucial moments in the past, and they haven't figured out how to get over the hump and become a champ. And on top of that, they have the Porzingis situation, which is always tenuous at best, where he's battling injury now. And yeah, I think Boston is. If I were betting, I would take Boston to be in the finals, right? Whether they win the finals or not, I have no idea, but that's who I would choose. But the Knicks are like 1B. Like they're right there now. You're watching how well they're playing. And I think that's the biggest thing. They're playing their best basketball right now. And Jalen Brunson is becoming like he's skip past star and he's becoming a superstar like right in front of our eyes. And it's just like really crazy to watch. But then they have so much grit all around him. They just have, like we had Nick Friedel on earlier today, who covers the NBA for Odyssey. And like he just said, like every single player that they have is like the player embodiment of Tom Thibodeau. Like they all have that same exact like psychotic defensive mindset and motor, and they don't stop, and they're pushing buttons the whole time. That's a really good way to build a team. And I think that when you have all of the defensive firepower they have, and then the ability to have a superstar who hits big shots and other players who do like very specific things that really break the spirit of your opponent, like Josh Hart going and getting like 7 offensive rebounds, and every single one of them is so crucial. Like that's a really, really good team. I wouldn't be shocked if they represent the East, but I think that would be because something went wrong with Boston a little bit.
And I think New York is the real deal.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're a good team, but I would also caution everybody. I don't think Philly was as good as other people thought they were. I mean, as you can see by the way that game played out, I mean, it was Maxey and Embiid and a bunch of mates.
Maxey
like
and Embiid.
we talking
Nick Nurse.
spades at this point. Yeah, like They didn't have a lot of edge.
And Shavano, let's go, buddy.
Run, buddy, run.
They had 2 and like 4 maybes at that point. That the Knicks handling that team, that just wasn't that good of a team. Like I don't think I don't think that Philly team
There's also
is anywhere on Boston's
you beat a
level.
desperate basketball team too. I think there's other things at play besides the team last night. Yeah, it was ass. What was this had to have been wrong. I'll see if I can check it on the box score. At one point last night, and it might have ended this way, was the bench scoring 36-0?
Yeah, it was.
Was that
It
right?
finished worse than that. Well, I mean, they had 40 off the bench I
almighty.
can think of. Yeah.
Yeah, that was crazy.
I'll look up the box
I
score.
think
That's
39-0 at one point.
Remember though, they lost
39-0?
Bojan. They lost Bojan, which has been their
Right.
6th man. So yeah, McBride needs to step up for sure.
I like
Yeah.
McBride.
Hey, like, look,
Well, shout out McBride. He scored 3.
Philadelphia
Mitchell Robinson scored 2. They finished with 5 bench points. But 2 of Philly's starters did not score. Kyle Lowry started a playoff game, an elimination playoff game last night. With all due respect, of course, to Kyle Lowry. That's insane.
Yeah.
Shout out to
wild.
Shavano. That man had 20 points yesterday. The final tally, let's say that's 36, 42 to 5. 42 to 5. And the team with 42 lost. Because I repeat, 2 of their starters had 0 points. And Tobias Harris said, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. I'm going to take 2 shots and be up.
2
in 30 minutes.
Awful.
In 30. No. That's not awful. The 4 rebounds is awful. You did nothing. You did absolutely nothing last night.
I don't know which is worse. You took.
They're
2
both
shots,
bad.
bro.
They're both bad. They're both bad.
You're getting paid $40 million. You take 2 shots. Maxey wasn't even scoring in the first 3 quarters. They needed somebody to score, and you took 1 shot.
Buddy raised his hand.
Buddy
said, I'll score.
Said, let's go, buddy. Shout out, buddy. So Buddy had the phenomenal play where he's going out of bounds and he flings it back, and I don't remember who it got to. It might have been Batum. Batum walks into a 3. I can't remember who walked into a step in 3. And all I kept thinking was, God, that's going to get run if the Sixers win this game. But in my head, that's such a horrible play. He threw it to the far side of like the court, which if that was a Knick, they would have been off running the other way. But shout out, Buddy.
He
I think
blew out
that was
AD
an assist.
assist.
I think that was an assist.
Buddy looked like, especially last night, and I've seen him a couple other times playing with the Sixers. He just plays different. Like he never, like with Philly, he was out there playing defense, communicating, like working, not really shot hunting, like was out there playing a team game.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I never saw this Buddy Hield.
So I get my jokes off with Shavano, but I will. Maybe it would have been different with Mike.
Maybe so.
Maybe that's our free agent signing this summer. Hashtag bring back Buddy. Oh, can you imagine Miss P and
You shut your mouth. Your mouth.
Okay.
Hey, funny thing about it though, if there wasn't any history,
yeah,
Buddy would be somebody to look at.
I know.
That's a bench guy.
But there's history. I just wonder if it would be different with Mike. This is what I wonder. It was different with Nick Nurse. It was different with Rick Carlisle.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it wasn't just Buddy in Sacramento. Maybe it was Buddy, Sacramento, and Lou and Alvin.
They just stopped playing him. Well, like, what are you talking about?
Well, there's that.
The Kings coaches had to play him because they had no other players. Like, what are you talking
is
about?
that part. We'll come back. We'll talk more with James Ham, and I'll let James know. Well, I got a nice little chuckle out of Bobby Marks's video on the Kings yesterday. That's when D'Lo and Casey returned here on Sacramento Sports Leader, ESPN 1320.
Casey says you need a guy with warts. I don't think there's
Well,
more warts than Buddy.
no, did you see
That's a
the
bullfrog.
did you see
Not
the
that
game
kind of
6
work,
conundrum? The Pacers, what is it? Pacers Knicks. Game 6.
Oh, same day as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
the Pacers will be playing at Butler.
I was gonna say, I think it was, I don't remember if it was Sports Media Watch or who it was. It was like, you can't move the Fever game.
No. It looks like the Pacers will be playing that game in Bloomington,
So
Indiana.
what he speculated is that they would move it to, like, they'd have it be Friday. They'd have game 6 be Friday, or what day before, day after, whatever they would move it, since it's not officially out there. But I thought that was hilarious.
I missed the Bobby Marks video.
Well, actually, you didn't. And I'll tell you why when we get back. And we love Bobby. There's not shade on Bobby. It's just what we do here. Where is Elle? Looked like she was at like a training facility or something.
They're doing the F1 stuff.
Oh, okay. That explains why. So I saw the giant tire and thought it was something they were flipping. Instead, it's actually something they're putting on a car.
Yeah, someone accused me and Kyle of being passive aggressive against Buddy and Halliburton and Luka earlier. I don't
It might have
remember who it was.
confused you with us.
I keep saying, like, I'm never passive aggressive about those guys. I'm usually very aggressive. Like Tyrese Halliburton, I never throw shade. I think he's a wonderful player.
Yeah, every
I
once
wish.
in a while I hate when he wins.
Yeah, I wish he could move on. You know. Oh, look at you! It's
No,
your little green cup.
Now I just wish I could move on. Yeah, he maybe wasn't the best guy in the locker room, but I think there's a lot of things at play. Did he do anything you can't come back from? Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
He did say Sacramento could suck a bleep.
Well, he did say that. But you could come back from that. I mean,
that's true. That's true. Shavano. That's Kyle didn't know the story of how he got his name, Buddy, which is one of the great stories ever. His mom was a huge fan of Married with Children, and so she started calling him Bud after like Bud Bundy. Mm-hmm. But then the drug dealer down the street also went by Bud, so she had to call him Buddy.
Well.
Yeah. I'm not joking.
The drug dealer down the street sold.
I mean,
a little tongue in cheek guy.
Yeah.
I see you, Taz. I'm not putting that on the screen, but I see you.
Whoa.
Which one?
Well, and Boombox is right. Don't talk shit about the city. We do have memories. We do have memories, and that was my point. Maybe it would be different with Mike. I don't think we're gonna find out, but maybe it would be different with Mike.
No, it would not.
Philadelphia, PA. Never really been there.
I've been there.
I've driven through a stop real quick.
Been where?
Philly.
I need to go to Philly. It's a history city. I haven't done Washington, D.C. either.
I can't believe you haven't done that city with all those books behind you. I don't even know.
Yeah.
It's a city. The district. You'd love it there. Kyle loves it. That's one of his favorite places.
Yeah. Both my boys have gone. They went on the 8th grade trip. So.
We're coming back, James. And back here with our insider from the Insiders, our man James Ham here. I mentioned James had said during the commercial break, man, I missed the Bobby Marks video on the Kings, 12-minute breakdown of the Kings offseason. Mm-hmm. And I kind of chuckled and said, well, actually, no, you didn't. And I'll explain. I watched Bobby's video. It popped up last night. We did reach out to Bobby when we weren't able to get a hold of him, but Bobby's always been really great with us, has joined us on numerous occasions. So I watched the video this morning. And I love Bobby, but I love James too. And I kept waiting for the video to get to the point where tell me something I don't know, Bobby. And all he really did is talk about the stuff that we talk about on a day in, day out basis. Again, Bobby is the authority when it comes to this stuff league wide. When it comes to the stuff isolated on Sacramento, that's where we turn to James Ham. And he said, even in a little bit less of detail, because we have 6 hours a day here on ESPN 1320 and 5 hours a week, or 5 days a week to talk about this stuff. He basically broke down everything we have broken down with James 17 times.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with hearing Bobby talk about it, but it's what we already know.
Yeah, there's not I mean, there's plenty of ways to help yourself. That's I think at the end of the day, people shouldn't just be looking at this as like doom and gloom. There are all kinds of ways, especially if you're willing to take on salary. And I would say just let's let Monty cook. And if he doesn't cook during this offseason, I
He's
think
gonna get cooked.
it's time to like make a lot more noise, but I think he will. I think he will like use as many mechanisms as possible to try to convert this roster into a more established winner by the end of the summer. Now, will everything work? I don't know. I don't know how many deals will fall through and how many deals they'll be able to close and all that stuff, but I would be very, very skeptical of like some of the noise you're hearing that they're gonna make like just some real small like cosmetic moves that don't really move the needle. They can't do that at this point. You just missed the playoffs. Like you need to make substantial upgrades at 2 or 3 of your top 8, 9 rotation, and that's just honest. That's the way it is.
Do you think they can get an upgrade in the starting lineup while holding on to your top 3 guys and Keegan, Sabonis, and Fox? And once again, I'm assuming bringing back Malik Monk as well. Do you think they can keep all 4 of those, I should say, and add a high level starting caliber player?
Yeah, I think they can. Like, look, the offseason is always weird. There's always some deal out there that we don't know about at all. There's some player that's become available that we have no idea. And it's up to Monty to, it's not just finding a name and finding someone you go, oh, did you hear who the Kings got? It's about finding a player that makes your team better. And that doesn't have to be the biggest name. Like I've talked about it the last couple of like the last week or so. Man, you know how big a player like Bobby Portis could be for the Sacramento Kings?
Mm.
And he's not an all-star, but he could convert you from, a 46 win team to a 53 win team with, on his own, but without the natural progression of other players. He's a perfect fit. He's basically like Jaren Jackson or Jabari Smith Jr. or like name that like athletic, 3-point shooting power forward. But on top of that, he's mean and he hits the 3 ball and he rebounds. And like he's one of those guys that you could just look at and say, man, he could be a perfect fit for what the Kings are trying to do. Now, I don't know if they can get Bobby Portis. Who knows? But that's the type of move where it's not always the gigantic 20-point per game guy or like some incredible like former all-star that is on some heavy deal. Sometimes it's one or two of these moves that just make too much sense and add to what you're building in as far as fit. And so I think the Kings they'll be smart and they'll be aggressive. And hopefully they'll be able to come up with, I think it's 2 or 3 moves that change the look and feel of what their rotation is.
I mean, I got to be honest. I feel like the Bucks would still be playing if they had Kevin Huerter. It's just my opinion. It's just my opinion. I know the people in Milwaukee are thinking, we need a veteran presence like Harrison Barnes. We don't need a guy like Bobby Portis going around talking about I'll F you up to young Tyrese Halliburton.
The young face of the league.
We need a stand-up guy nominated for teammate and all of That's what Belo and JC in Milwaukee are saying right now on the Cheesehead show or whatever that stuff is called out there.
I like that. I like the way you're thinking.
Yeah, man. I'm just trying to make the Bucks better. I'm trying to allow them to compete.
Yeah.
With not fall off. Yeah, we're trying to help.
Yeah, we're looking out.
But
for
look,
them.
we'll take Bobby Portis.
I mean,
if we actually,
getting worse.
I'm a used car salesman. I'm losing money on this deal.
Yeah. Well, look, I think, people out there in like 2 years ago, they would have I see John Collins' name mentioned in the
That's
chat.
the name I keep forgetting about.
Well, people would love to, like a couple of years ago, would have loved to have had John Collins on this team. Now it's like you wouldn't touch John Collins with a 10-foot pole. There's no way that you're taking on a John Collins unless he somehow is making no money and you're signing him to a low level deal and trying to rebuild his value. Like I could see something like that. But look, the Kings have to be super, super aggressive, but also they need to focus on what the analytics say a little bit. What is it? Again, it's not about going and spending, $45 on a bottle of Grey Goose if the Costco version is $17 and the exact same stuff. You don't have to have the biggest, baddest name. What you have to have is a player that makes sense and fits a role within your team and makes you better. And sometimes those things just they mean way more. And for that matter, you can get two of those for the price of the other one. So sometimes that's the way you have to build your team as well.
Is Grey Goose and Kirkland the same thing?
Sure.
It's one of them.
Enough of it.
Yeah, there's no.
Well, that's a solid point, my friend. That is a solid point. Well done, sir.
That's how you got to get it. That's how you got to make it the same thing.
The Kirkland was flowing pretty strong here in the Odyssey studios today.
Whew.
I texted Kimberly, hey, what kind of tequila do we have?
Hey.
Said, only the finest. Oh, Kirkland.
Well, we ain't playing. We are not playing around out here. This is a celebration.
Kirkland and Chipotle.
The best, though, is that all of the liquor settled in the bottom of the little, we have. Yeah, so we have these jugs with ice and then mix, and then they poured in the liquor, and then it all just settled. So unless you stirred that thing up, you're just getting straight up flavor, like a pink colored drink. That's all.
I don't think she poured them at the same time. And so there wasn't just the natural. I think one went in and then she pulled the other bottles out and then the other ones went in. And then, I noticed the same thing when people were, I was like, why does that look? Oh, but I'm sure it didn't bother anybody here.
I was about to say, maybe they stirred mine before I had my margarita.
Oh, she might have.
Because it's in there.
Yeah.
It's in there.
No, what he's saying is the alcohol is at the bottom.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So the alcohol would
come out the dispenser first.
Yeah, got you. Well,
so you probably that explains a lot. You're feeling pretty good right now.
Maybe they didn't stir.
In case he's feeling pretty good right now.
Hey, I got a logistic question for you.
Oh,
with the Kings coaching staff, somebody mentioned earlier with Darvin Ham being fired in Los Angeles, would he potentially come to the Kings? Now, I'm not asking you if that's a possibility, although it could be. But do you think they're done with that coaching staff, the Kings? Like they just kind of moved Luke Louts up and just keep it going that way? Or are they looking for a possible high-level assistant like Darvin Ham?
Okay, so I don't think they're looking for a high-level assistant because the front of the bench is full again. So between Luke and Doug and Jay Triano, you already have sort of your front line of the bench. But they also have at least two coaches that I know that are potentially looking at other spots or have been offered, for other locations. Now, whether either one of those two leave or not, I'm not going to say names yet, but if one or both of those leave, I definitely could see the Kings going out and looking to add to the back end of the bench. And it's good. It's good to have turnover like this because, Leandro Barbosa deserves an opportunity to move up. And Luke Louts deserves an opportunity to move up. And for that matter, you need other voices in the room. And sometimes those other voices have really, really good ideas or can contradict a coach that is maybe making a mistake or point something out that in the right setting is received well. And it's just good to have a second, or third set of eyes in there that's new, that's not the same group that's been there for 3 years or 2 years.
We're running back, man. We just might as well. Coaching staff, players, the whole thing. Let's get ready. Herter, Barnes, everything you hate and frustrated you this year, let's just get ready. We're back, baby. We're back, baby. I don't know how they're going to frame it this year, but we're back, baby.
That's it. We're back, baby.
I keep trying to figure out who's the player. Like, even if it's well, you could probably sign Tobias Harris for $250 and some jawbreakers today. But outside of that, and that's the question we're just going to ask ourselves now, frustratingly, for 2 more months is, well, first it's going to be Malik, but it's like, who's the other guy? Like, if we could get Malik, who's the other guy? And then probably more frighteningly, if we can't, then what? Like, how many plans does Sacramento have? Like, all right, Malik, we got plan 1. Here's Malik, and then here's like our structure of plans. Then we have this other really scary tier where we don't have Malik. What's that set of plans look like?
Yeah, I think the Kings definitely have like 6 whiteboards working all at one time. Like, you have to have contingencies, and that's what we're talking about. I think that the Kings are, like the contingency for Malik Monk not being there is not great. But I also think that there is a way in which you can restructure sort of who your players are at the 2 and the 3 that make more sense. So again, I've said this before, like, you don't have to. You might want to try to find another Malik, but you could also try to find like a frontline shooting guard that makes your team better and is like a 20-point per game guy at the 2, and then use Keon Ellis off the bench, use Davion Mitchell off the bench, and then maybe even like search for that energy guy at the 3. I also think that there are ways in which, if you could get the right player to play the power spot, and you can have Keegan Murray at the 3, I think having Kevin Huerter stay around as like a 2-3 like floater, that's not bad. I just don't think what you can do is you can get yourself in the same situation where Kevin Huerter and Harrison Barnes are playing alongside each other for 30 plus minutes tonight, because I like defensively, that is where you can't hold up. And it's not that one of them is so horrible. It's that the combination of them together doesn't give you enough variance. And that's where I think that, again, if they can improve some of the other players around, you don't have to have everyone gone. But I would certainly expect that, in a perfect world, either Herter or Harrison are no longer there, just because, again, like having 2 players who are limited physically and all that stuff, I think it does hurt you.
I feel like Mike likes Harrison.
I think he does too.
Not that he wouldn't work to try to make the team better.
Right.
I mean, that's Monty's job, but I'm sure Mike is a part of those conversations.
But who do you think?
Harrison.
Who do you think? I shouldn't say this, but who do you think wins out in that conversation?
Monty.
Yeah. I mean, I think
you disagree?
No, I think so too.
I mean, I think, but I don't. I mean, I don't know. Hopefully, you don't get to a point. I mean, we do. I mean, I say hopefully you don't get to a point where it gets, like strong sides of disagreement. But of course, we're watching the Frank Vogel situation unfold in Phoenix, and one of the only pro Frank Vogel things that came out was Frank was asking for like a legitimate point guard all year, and they signed Isaiah Thomas for the final 10 days of the year, but essentially gave no one a real shot at running this team.
Which is kind of crazy too, that like, not crazy what he's saying, but crazy that it comes out like, how are they going to go get a point guard?
Well,
like,
it doesn't matter. It's all posturing at this point.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I've been trying to get a point guard. They wouldn't give me a point guard. How are they going? You ain't got no money or no trade assets. So you're just talking at this point, just like they was just talking.
That's it. That's
Yeah,
it.
but I mean, I do think that, at the trade deadline or, in the free agent market at some point, you probably should have at least tried. It reminded me really because Bradley Beal kept getting hurt and he was pretty much your de facto point guard when he was healthy. And then, Booker played it all the other times. It really did hurt them. And I get what they're saying. It reminds me of like what was it, 2013-14 season when uh, Isaiah Thomas got hurt for Sacramento, and Ray McCallum, who was a second round draft pick, was playing between 45 and 48 minutes a night. And Mike Malone was begging the front office to get him anyone that could play point guard just to finish out the season. And the response was to go out and sign Royce White to a 10-day contract. So there has to be the front office and the coaching staff have to be on the same page. And I think for the most part, you can see some things in Sacramento that showed you that they were this year. Even the fact that, you brought Alex Len back, but you also went out and got JaVale McGee, which was an ask from Mike Brown. There was a point where, again, I think Mike Brown would have preferred to have Juan Toscano Anderson around during training camp. And that didn't happen, but you did bring him in at some point and had him there for a little while on a minimum deal. So anyway, I think that there are some places where there is, you can see the continuity between the coaching staff and the front office, but Mike Brown definitely has a list of wants for this summer, and like every coach does, and you hope that they can come up with some of those because this team has some glaring holes that they have to figure out how to address, and it's not about coaching. There's nothing you can do to coach around the fact that the guy that you're going up against has a wingspan that's 8 inches longer than the guy you're trying to defend him with, and when he gets off the ground, there's nothing you can do with shooting right over the top of the guy the whole time. So that's an issue that the Kings need to address.
Hammer, you were talking about betting earlier. If I asked you to place your money on a rookie playing for the Sacramento Kings next year, would you take that bet?
No, I don't think so. I mean, there's always a possibility that the Kings can't trade the 13th overall pick, or that their second round pick they do something with, and maybe that player is better than we think. But I would be, I mean, I wouldn't be just shocked and oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened because when Davion was drafted number 9, we all thought that pick was getting traded then, and it didn't. But this particular draft and where you're at as a team, and the fact that, happy birthday to Domantas Sabonis, he turns 28 years old today. That's right. You are, there is a ticking, there's a clock on this team, just like there is on any team. And, that clock isn't this coming year, but, it's you need to get something done in the next year or two to give this chance, this team an opportunity to maybe, compete for a title for a year or 2 or 3, maybe even 4 years. And that means you have to start getting on it now. You've got to start changing this thing and building out the roster as we speak. You can't wait any longer.
Yeah, I understand. I hope I hear everything that you say, James, as far as it doesn't have to be this big name player, but it feels like when you talk about Harrison and Herter possibly being gone, and then the draft pick possibly being gone, all that to me says big name. You know what I mean? Because it feels like you can get a Bobby Portis with if you have those 3 assets, Herter, Harrison, and the pick, feels like you can get Bobby Portis for 1, maybe 2 of those. You don't have to not have all 3. But I also get what you're saying too. You don't have to use all 3 assets on one player. You know what I mean? You can use 2 on one player and then another asset on another one. But it feels like if you can bring all 3 of them together and take back salary, might be one of them names that people talk about.
Yeah, I've said this a million times that, whether they are able to get a top flight guy or not, I have no idea, right? But it's always going to be about finding pieces that mesh together properly, and I'll just go back to, the Kings traded Jeff Petrie traded Jason Williams for Mike Bibby, and he traded Corliss Williamson, who was a really good player at that point and went on to win Sixth Man of the Year. Traded him for Doug Christie, who was a scorer and obscure up in Toronto. He had a couple of good seasons, but again, it's not the team that starts the 6 to 8 year run. It's a team that really you have for the whole, like the middle of the run, that is how we remember most of these teams. And, we all remember Bobby Jackson, but like some people don't remember Vernon Maxwell or Tony Delk being on the team. And that's, it's kind of the way it goes. Like a build continues to change like over the course of time. We all remember John Barry, or remember Anthony Peeler or Jim Jackson being on the team. Like these are all things that, it's just not one linear straight to the top thing that you're going to climb to the top and be a championship team. You're just hoping that they're able to slowly tick some of these boxes that they're missing right now.
Yeah, that's fine. It'd be a lot easier if we could just go straight to the top.
Skip Paul George.
Yeah.
Well, y'all
Just
hate Paul George
and...
after that conversation.
I love Paul George.
I don't know.
Paul George. That's my dude.
I don't know.
That's my guy. Don't do that. Don't try to play me. Don't do that.
Jack Caraway.
Yeah.
I mean, well, we only have 2 more months of this. We're going to have this same conversation 10 more times because something's going to be written. Something's going to be said. Some player somewhere is not going to want to be someplace or somewhere. And we're going to be like, hey, what about, we talked about that a month ago. We're just going to bring it back.
Hey, the hope is Kendrick and Drake's beef lasts 2 more months. Help us get through.
Oh, my God.
There it is.
If Kendrick and Drake's beef lasts 2 more months, James is going to be an expert. James is going to be like the Joe Budden, the DJ academics of ESPN 1320, breaking down the intricacies of the release times. And
James gonna be like, I want to see Drake bleed.
James going to be able to draw back to the time he was in the Toronto Raptors locker room when they won a championship, and how Drake was there, and how Kendrick saw it, and how it's manifested itself into this beef right here.
And that happened at 9:19 p.m. and they flipped it to 6:60.
Very nice. Very nice. Great job, James. Great job breaking down Drake. You got to go to the Kings beat for a full breakdown.